Hi, Huda. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Thank you for being with me and with our brilliant community, both in Pakistan and elsewhere in the world. Believe me when I say, I'm so glad to have met you, even though it's online, but you have inspired me to be more brave and to get your work out to the public because it's so important. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Khaula, and it's an honor. And thank you for giving me the time to share and talk.
Okay, with that, I think I'm trying to recall how we met, but I do remember it was COVID, we were under lockdown, but I think you were in between your master's and PhD. Can you walk us through how did you first get out of Pakistan and why Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this was during COVID, and at that time, I just applied for MRes, so Master's Research, sort of like a pathway to PhD, and that's a good way of feeling out if you want to pursue something as intensive as a PhD. And that's when I was basically my thesis. It deconstructs and explores the practice of khitan, khatna, female genital cutting, and I was looking into that. So I wrote my research proposal and I applied for an MRes, and then I did get accepted, and I had to study for a short period while the borders were closed. I had to do it online. But the beginning process is sort of, the ethics application, figuring out the literature, reading, learning, questioning everything you know. So I was navigating all those things. Why did I choose Australia? So I think um, when it comes to building a life and finding maybe some sort of residential stability, that was one of the reasons that I chose Australia. And one of my siblings was already, he's here, my nephew is here. So I have some family here as well, which is why I thought it would be um, not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in Australia. But then I did go on to pursue basically a PhD. So instead of an MRes. So if you decide during the MRes that I really want to turn this into a PhD, then you can convert it basically, just move into the PhD direction. And that was made easier for me because I got a fee waiver, URTS fee waiver, so I didn't really have to worry about the payments or the costs. And I think with the PhD,
Yeah.
it's so important to make sure that your studies are funded, especially with the current economy. So that's how I ended up in the program and in this country. For me, it wasn't so much about the university ranking. I think it was me aligning with the supervisors and knowing that I can work with these people. That was very important to me because even if you do end up with really well-known supervisors or in a great institution, but if there's not as much compassion or kindness, I feel that can hold a person back, at least someone like myself. So I was looking for more of that flexibility, that growth, and that learning process, which I was able to find. So yeah.
Right. I'm so glad because I think in all the community groups we keep emphasizing how important it is to find the supervisor fit over the university ranking. I mean, you're going to be spending literally all your hours with them. It's like you're building a relationship. It will have a
Yeah.
and down as well. I think you mentioned that there's one thing we don't talk enough about how PhD need you to have a support system around you.
Uh, a PhD has what? Sorry?
Yeah, you mentioned that PhD is a very tough journey and
Yeah.
it's important that we talk about the need to have a support
Yeah.
system around us.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what we see, we were just talking about this, that what we see is these posts online, right? Because we're in this digital sphere and social media posts and everyone celebrating their achievements, which is great. But I think the story behind it, I suppose the challenges, the resilience, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and sometimes also some of the emotional and mental challenges a person can go through. Because a PhD is it sort of not only shapes your research, it also shapes you as a person.
Yeah.
And it affects all parts of your life, like your routine, your relationships, every single thing in your life next 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, I think we don't talk about the challenges enough, and it's so important to have a support system. I think the one thing that got me through was because with this specific topic and the lens I was using, whether it was the methodology or the theoretical choices I made within the thesis and the practice itself, especially when it comes to women's bodies, um, uh, there was, in some cases, there was dearth of data when it comes to Pakistan. So that can also be challenging to navigate. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that when you're having difficulties or there are hiccups or you can't move past things, you have supportive people there, cheerleading for you. And there are times when you don't even believe in yourself, like, where you're like writing a chapter and you're like, I can't do this. I feel like I'm gonna go crazy and I don't want to read it like for the 50th time and edit it. And that's when, honestly speaking, my family would, they've been my biggest support, my parents, my siblings, my dogs, and my partner. He has been instrumental in my growth as a person and as a researcher. And I was far away from actually most of them for the majority of the time, even my siblings, even the one who's here in Melbourne, because I was living in Darwin and away from my partner and my parents, everybody. So I think it was, just these video calls, those calls, the text messages that got me through. Um, I would also discuss a lot of religious literature, a lot of translation when it came to Arabic and different languages with my father. So um, those conversations, Khala, they got me through. Especially the last year, I remember there were times where I did not sleep for 2 days and I was just writing. And I'm not even kidding. I did not sleep. And my partner said to me, he's like, you need to sleep, Huda. You're gonna lose your mind. So these things happen and I couldn't because I'm the kind of person like I need to get this done. I want it to be the best that it can be. It might not be the best thing out there, but it needs to be the best that I can give it. So having that support system, those conversations, that dialogue, people to lean on, uh, it's so important. It's so important. And I had one friend who was in the same university. I studied international relations from Queen Mary University in London, and he was in the law department. I was in the politics department, but he was doing his PhD at Bond University, and I was doing mine at Charles Darwin University. And he was in Australia. Even though we were far away, we would still talk and connect. So I had that support in my friend circle because most of my friends are not in academia or my family for that matter. So that was also helpful. So having good friends, family, is just so important. And if you have a supportive partner, it can really help because he helped me navigate how structures and systems work specifically in the Western system. Um, because he already had somewhat of a background in academia and already had a PhD way before me. So that was really helpful. So yeah.
Oh, that is so interesting. I kind of have just a jumble long question. What would you advise for those people who are applying for PhD programs? They are very passionate about research, they have clarity, they are applying everywhere. But considering how we don't often talk about the behind it, the post, I mean, there's some kind of taboo about that people don't share often. They don't want to appear weak or vulnerable because the world is watching you doing your PhD. You're supposed to be some kind of hero. You're doing a doctorate program. So I'm wondering that how do we build resilience? Is PhD for those who already are resilient or who might have that kind of positive mindset? I wonder what happens here.
So one thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna be very unfiltered with this, Khala, and you have been such a support as well during my journey. I mean, you've been a great friend. And I think I've vented on WhatsApp, and I want to thank you for being a listener. I think what people don't talk about, especially in academia, what I've seen is how this can impact your mental health. People who are already struggling with mental health, which there's no shame in, it can be very difficult, very challenging. So I would say behind all those LinkedIn posts and those tweets and any kind of posts, um, anyone who's planning to go into research, especially if it's like something that's going to be so intensive for 3 or 4 years, like a PhD, you need to prioritize uh, what really matters to you. Is this something you want to do for yourself, or society? Is this something that you're dedicated, you're passionate about? And will you be able to get through it? Because isolation, alienation, mental health challenges, emotional lows, these are very common. And I think in higher education literature, they find that, a lot of PhD students do struggle with things like depression. And there's a lot of stress. There are deadlines. There are different milestones you need to pass through every year. Every year you need to say, okay, this is what I've completed. This is what I have. The pressure of publishing. These are all realities in academia. Um, um, so what would I say to these people is that I think always put your physical and your mental health first, right? And make sure you have a strong support system. Sometimes that support system can even be one person. It doesn't matter. It can even be your animal family, your cat, your dog. Secondly, I would say there's a lot of literature out there on resilience as well, and especially when it comes to specific cultures and people from specific cultures who show more resilience in navigating structures as internationals, as immigrants. I think building that resilience mindset is only done when you take breaks. If you are getting frustrated with your work, you're not getting that academic job, you're not getting a chapter done, you need to step away from it. You need to wind down. You need to find other ways to process things. For me, it was, doing weights, working out. That was one of the ways I coped, especially when I was completely alone. And during my PhD, I broke my foot, and for I think a month and a half, I had to use crutches, and I had a lot of difficulty. And this is, I am being very vulnerable saying this, but even when I went to the toilet, I had to crawl and go to the toilet. And that's when I had nobody to sort of help me out at all. It was a very dark time for me, but the one thing that got me through was just telling myself that this is something that I am doing because I feel strongly about it. I'm gonna get through this. And if anyone can do it, I can do it. And you just need to tell yourself that till you believe it. So
Yes,
there's a lot of self-affirmation you need to do. In academia, people attach their self-worth to their publications, to their university ranking. Don't do that. You're way more than just a PhD. That's part of a system, a structure too. I'm critical of that as well. The systems and structures we navigate. Know your worth through how kind you are, how compassionate you are, how strong you are, and
Yeah.
how you navigate situations. That's where your worth lies and how you share your love with your loved ones. Your worth does not solely lie in this because academia can crush you and take away your self-confidence, and then all you're left with is imposter syndrome and questioning, am I good enough or am I just shit at this? So don't let that happen. So make sure you have branched out support. You have hobbies, things that you feel passionate about outside of academia as well. That's what I would say. And also make sure that if you don't have a job that is purely academic, but you're still within the academic environment,
Whenever.
that it's okay to have pursue a career, academic career casually, which over here in Australia is known as casual employment. But you also need to feed yourself and you need to stay alive and pay the rent. So it's okay to also have a job that helps you get by. So I think that's how you build resilience, self-affirmation, having a support system, knowing that your worth does not solely lie in the degree or in the publications that you have, which is very contradictory to say as well, because that's how I still struggle with that one. But it's so important to do that, and it's important to surround yourself with good people. I can't say this enough. And measure your worth through the compassion you have for your own self. There is nothing wrong with being vulnerable. There is nothing wrong with having weak moments. We're all human. And I think these things they build resilience. For me, I think the point where I became the most resilient was when I had to go through that injury myself. So I couldn't have any family there, nothing. And I only had these painkillers that they gave, which I didn't want to take because they were like opioid painkillers. And I was like, no thanks. I'm just gonna wing it through. But वो point जो था ना Khaula, that that switched my brain. मैंने कहा अगर if I can get through this injury and still teach and still study,
Yeah.
I can get through this degree. The last 6 months are gonna be hell. Yeah, anyone who says otherwise, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with them, but
I think we underestimate how strong we human beings actually are. It's not possible that I have a faith-based system around me. I believe that even if we are alone somewhere in the world, we are not really alone. We can get help, and we need to get better at getting help. I know as international students, and I think I will want to talk a bit about the work you are now doing, since you feel very confident now. But I think it's important that international students learn how to tell themselves better when it comes to talking about their work, even if it's very rare. Like in your case, I remember how difficult it was to convince the community to talk about the customs and taboos, especially when it comes to femicide, female genital mutilation. And also that we know about gender-based violence, but not much about that. And I cannot comment how important it was for me to meet you because I wanted to build my network of those people who are taking an anthropological point of view to uncover what is happening not just in Pakistan but slowly over the other regions in the world. And I remember when we connected because I was going through a very tough time and I was trying to find a tribe for myself, the kind of work I'm doing, social justice and consultancy. I couldn't find anyone. LinkedIn really helped me with that. So if you can just kind of reflect a bit, do you think that more people need to do the hard work?
uh, more people need to do the what? Sorry.
Hard work, the harder work. Like I know people like to stay in the comfort zone because there's so much data and literature and it's easier to back them up.
Oh, yes. See, I this doesn't I think so it's about mindset because we were talking about resilient mindsets. So, yes, I think some people are they have a very strategic mindset, and then there are people who love just learning and putting themselves in difficult positions.
Yeah.
And I I feel like I feel like I can relate more to the second, not the former. So yes, it. I guess it can be said that when there's a lot of data out there, there's literature out there that, oh, this would be easy to navigate. But I would still think, Khala, because there needs to be an original contribution to knowledge and some sort of knowledge production. When it comes to PhD, I'm sure it would still be challenging, so I wouldn't undermine that. But stepping into something where there are back in 2017, there were just a few blogs, and then you had the RIIN article when you would look it up. And one draft paper that referred to the National Action Plan for Children, which never actually took place when the assemblies dissolved and the government restructured. My point being that, yes, it was very, very difficult, but also, oh my God, this journey changed me as a person, this
Yeah,
research, the community I interacted with. Um, Phenomenal people. I came across amazing human beings. This would not have been possible without the people who shared their stories with me. And I'm so grateful. And it, they play such an important role. And I think that's very important to always say in research, the role of the community in research. It is difficult. There will be points where your work is also met with skepticism. But then if you're the one looking into it every single day, finding different things, even to the point where in one of the chapters, especially the ones about political Islam, I look at the political structure, federal Sharia courts, Council of Islamic Ideology, these things. And I ended up looking at legal cases as well. I'm not a lawyer, but what I'm trying to say is I was looking through things to find out had there been any cases, any reports, anything of that sort. Um, yes, I will say it is hard to shape that because if there's not much literature on that, then it is challenging. There is one thesis from Habib University, a bachelor's thesis, that did some work, but it wasn't in the same sort of theoretical and the sort of deconstruction I was doing, especially with the secrecy related to female genital cutting. So, yes, it is difficult. I think I would tell people to go with their personality. It really depends on the kind of researcher and kind of person you are. People like to divide things into, oh, quantitative, qualitative, and this is more authentic, this is less authentic. No, stories are always going to be authentic. They're a form of knowledge production. And secondly, I would also say that who you are as a person will reflect in your work. I don't see how you can detach that. So for me, my positionality did reflect in my work, and that's something I focus on a lot. So depending on who you are you someone who wants to strategize? Are you someone who wants to collect data in the field, or are you someone who wants to look into some uh, desk research and literature? So it depends on who you are and what you prefer. I would recommend students choose that, what aligns with their personality, because that'll come naturally and you won't feel a resistance, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense.
but I'm so glad that I'm talking to someone who is not afraid of doing the difficult work because my dad, I remember he used to tell me that why don't you pick an easy topic to do for your master's back then, like from a teacher? And I was like, no, I've had this experience of discrimination in Pakistan, high school, in college, in university. For my teachers, I want to see our teachers feeling discriminated because we pass laws and policies for special needs education, the need to be more inclusive, but our teachers feeling discriminated, like lack of training and all. And my dad was like, no, this is such a difficult topic. No one will really share the original thought about the system and processes. And honestly, when I started doing field visits, I wasn't getting any response. The principal would shut the door on my face, and then that realized me that it made me realize that my personality is like, I don't want to do the easy one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's always the types of people. So I think, I guess, it's good to go with who you are, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to be your authentic self. I will say this, I do still struggle using LinkedIn and sharing my work. And I've shared this with you, Khala. You know that I struggle so much. But my brother, he's like, Huda, you need to do this. Like, how are you going to share your work? This is the world we're living in, and this is how people share things now. No one's going to read this if you're not going to share it. So I struggle with it, but I still do it. So there will be parts that I guess both of us, I guess, we're doing in our kind of work that we're not feeling great about. But to make sure that at least 65 to 70% is what you feel good about when you're doing your work, that's when you know, okay, this is what I want to do. And I'm still writing, I'm still working on a few written pieces as well. And I'm also looking into developing courses too. I'm also applying to places, and that's another thing I'll say after academia and the current economy, and we can see how social science departments and anthropology and sociology, they're being shut down. Um, I would say don't be too demoralized by rejections. Don't. That doesn't define you either. So being part of academia, you get rejected so much that it's just like, okay, just move on. So that's, I guess, how I feel like I became maybe resilient. I still think there are
Yeah.
people way more resilient than me. When I see my mom, I see Ma, and like, but yeah, those are the things that build resilience. And yeah, I mean, if you're a learner, then yeah, I would say that go for something that probably is untouched or probably needs to be addressed in society. Um, Similar to what you do, Khala. Like, you speak about things that people overlook in Pakistani society, ठीक है? And you bring it to the forefront, and that's so important. And yeah, so that's what I have to say.
I have a follow-up, like kind of a takeaway, if you will. Finding your community, like people of readers, like readers, people need to read, people need to know what this research is so important. I think I know LinkedIn can be very kind and it can be so difficult. Oh, I'm doing this humble brag, putting myself out there. But can you tell us, like, very honestly, had things improved for you because now you're on a job hunt, going back to academia? How are people responding to your work now?
Oh yeah. So it's mixed, I'll say. Also, I am an international here in Australia, so this is also something, visas, that's a huge thing in today's world. I mean, that's sort of like a privilege, and you get a pass and openness to opportunities. So I'm still an international, but I'm on a work and a residence visa. I'm no longer on a student visa, or a research student visa. There has been a massive difference in how people have, yeah, I mean, it's like day and night. I won't say, oh yeah, I'm like, it's like changed my life. No, I'm still getting rejections from places. I'm still applying for places, and we need to talk about that openly too. But yeah, Khala, after completing the PhD and then sharing it and putting myself out there, which was so difficult, but I did it. And then I messaged you about it. Um, yeah, I think people are actually now reading work they weren't reading before. about female genital cutting, about women's bodies, about society. And a lot of my work also talks about reflexivity. यानी कि अपनी खुद ये मैं कहती हूँ अपनी तनकीद करना, to be very self-critical and to see where your position lies as well.
Uh,
So now they're actually reading it, which is strange, I guess. I guess people respond faster than they used to, I think. Um, yeah, those are the changes I felt that people who would not respond to me before, I think they now respond. I was like, nothing changed. Like I'm still the same person. But as long as the work gets out there, Khala, that's all that matters. So yes, once you get through these things and these structures and you get your degree and you get, people do treat you differently. Currently, I am still working at the university and I'm doing tutorial support and helping Indigenous students and First Nation students navigate their courses. And that's something I'm passionate about, always helping students. I love teaching. I love tutoring. I love helping out. So if that's some way I can stay connected and still publishing, and I also work in communications, so I'm still within that circle. But yes, people from other places and who would probably not respond before do now respond or do check the profile or go through your research portal and stuff, which I think wasn't happening as much before. Like 4 years ago, like, yeah, I would just be emailing and reaching out like, hey, can we collaborate? Can we this? Like, no, no response.
I'm glad you feel that, oh, I'm ready to collaborate and get myself out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually very amazing. I think the title helped a lot, like you are a doctorate, it helped a lot. But I don't think in your case, I mean, that's my opinion. It's not just the title you have, it's just that you have been doing more visibility because the work is catching up a lot. Their data and numbers are not supporting the actual on the ground reality. It's just catching up now. It took
Yes.
years, but it's catching up now.
Oh my God, Khala, I'm so glad you picked on that because you're right. When I was writing my first research proposal, it was 2018, right? It was end of 2017, 2018. There was hardly anything. But now, female genital cutting, FGC data, especially in Asia, it is catching up, it is growing. And that's something that we're also working on data visibility and things. And I also volunteer in places as well, like organizations, the Asian Network to End FGMC. So I'm one of the NCs, the national coordinator for Pakistan. So we have been working on things and campaigns and to make sure that we can address this practice as well. So you're correct in saying that now finally the world is catching up with this data because first the practice was quote unquote Africanized. You will find a lot of literature from the 70s, 80s onwards just focusing on Africa. And there has been criticism as well that there might be a racial element to it. There might be sort of a Western superiority hierarchical concept to it as well. Um, uh, and that's something I've discussed in my work as well. But now they're realizing it happens throughout the world. In every part of the world, there is some type of FGC happening. Now, whether that is um, removal to type 1, removal of the clitoral hood, or if it's type 3, which includes infibulation. So now there's more data that this happens in Asia. So yes, people are reading these things now. You're correct in saying that. And maybe if I've also put it out there, whether it's on your Google Scholar, whether it's on your your research portal, your university research portal, you become more, is that the word? Is I'm not sure, discoverable or Googleable or something. Whenever people
Just something like maybe
yeah, yeah. So it's easier to find. Another thing I would also say is platforms like The Conversation, academic blogs. So even if you're new in research and you're transitioning into that research phase, Don't be shy. Students should not be shy to contribute or pitch to blogs, academic blogs, or to platforms like The Conversation, which your university can help you also pitch. I actually, the article that I got in The Conversation, I feel like that also because I put myself out there, I pitched to the editor and I got a response. And this was surprisingly, it was without the university media team helping. So I was really happy to get a response because I was like, Pakistan has not been discussed anywhere. So find the gaps. You know, you need to keep digging through. There will be nights where you're going to be up digging through, find the gaps and fill those gaps. If you're a researcher, you will do that at heart. If you feel passionate about something, and you want to pursue a topic, you will do it. So you're right in saying that putting myself out there as my writing, my research, my profile as well, sharing the data that okay, there's a dearth of data. This is what I'm working on. That also helps. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, yeah, you're completely making sense. In fact, I was reading the paper you sent me today, and I was just reading that. Although I've taken a lot of time today, but the way you communicate your work to the public, let me give you a way of hope with that. The way you have been communicating your writing, because it's not like simple writing, it's plain writing. They need to write plainly about scientific and medical concepts to get into the reader's mind. I have read the entire paper and have understood it.
I'm so glad that you said that because whether it is language, whether it is abilities, platforms, privileges, all these things are part of a structure, and there's gatekeeping in it. Academic language is a massive way to gatekeep knowledge.
Yeah,
कि जो अवाम है उसको कुछ पता ही ना चले. And I think कि language plays a very important part, which is why I work with my father on translating texts into Urdu. So my father has been, yeah, he's been great in this journey and has helped me throughout. And he helps me with my volunteer work as well to translate texts from English on Niswani Khatna to Urdu. So that's one way of disrupting gatekeeping. And I'm a huge believer in that. And that's why I feel so strongly about languages and I love languages. But my thesis, yes, it's different than the paper I sent you. It's academic-y and there was an audience I was writing for. But this resource, it was a learning resource for students. I wanted them to understand.
yeah,
It's just not show it's, but telling them this is how I did it. And that should be in digestible language, language that students want to sort of like pick up and they want to read and they don't want to go like, now I have to Google this word. Now I have to look this up.
activity.
And there are a few people, massive big time theorists whose work I read and I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you telling me that someone, even a native English speaker, understands what's written here? And the thing is, to 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 disrupt this is so important. I'm not going to say how I can do it every time. I didn't do it as much in my thesis, but when I find platforms where I can write in ways that will be received easily, easy language, digestible language, accessible language. It's so important. I do it because I think I'm like, what's the point? This we're doing this because we're sharing data, we're sharing stories, we're sharing knowledge, we're learning. I'm still learning. I think I even wrote in that being a non-expert. It's so important to approach things from that perspective. I mean, in academia, it's like, oh, an expert on this, and no, you can never know everything. And if someone feels, I don't know, but I feel like if someone feels like, oh, I know everything, I'm like, there's something wrong there.
Yeah,
Um, there should be a constant pursuit to learn and um, to humble yourself. And that's why there's this, I've also been working on it, and I think I've shared that piece with you as well. But context, compassion, and community, these three things are something that I focus on a lot in my work. Um, And that's something I believe is very important. Even if we're talking about female genital cutting, it is important to remember that this practice does not define a community. The shaming a community or labeling a community in unkind ways is unnecessary. And it doesn't take us a step further, it takes us a step behind. So I think we should work more on community building and compassion and how we can address these things through a community-built approach, and not through segregation, especially in times like this. So I guess sometimes our precarities, our politics, our positionalities, they all show through in our work. And especially for me, that's something I learned in writing my thesis. So yeah. Yeah, if you can write easy, write easy. There's no need to say the water was flowing in a majestic way across the blah, blah, blah. Just say, yeah, okay, water.
Yeah, I think it takes yourself to be very humble and recognize that your work is going to be read by a lot of people if you can dilute the language for them, but retaining the importance of them. And that kind of wraps up what we have been talking about earlier, that if you're going into a PhD program, you're not trying to be an expert here. You're trying to learn, be a learner. Any
I
final,
always say that. I
yeah,
feel
any
very
final takeaway?
uncomfortable with, yeah, the word expert. And I often talk to my partner about this. I'm like, I feel very uncomfortable. I'm not sure why. That's also, I've been writing something which talks about the precarity of being in academia and still writing and having a love and hate relationship with writing, one of frustration and fervor. And I think, yeah, I think I have some issues with that because that sort of also creates a hierarchy, which I'm not comfortable with. Um, I at least perceive myself more as someone who's learning because this thesis was not possible if these women did not share their stories. And to claim expertise over something like that, to me, I don't know, maybe if I'll change my mind along the way or I turn into some kind of like megalomaniac or something. But for now, I just think like I'm just a learner, and it would be bizarre for me to say that I have any kind of power or expertise over am I confident? Am I willing to always share? Am I willing to look at absolutely 100%? I'm always willing to do that. But how we frame the word expert as well, I don't know, maybe yeah, something I personally just always feel uncomfortable with maybe.
This is something we can debate with an expert. Maybe if you're really good at something, maybe you are an expert. But all experts are actually great learners. So for anyone listening on us, uh, just be a lifelong learner that really humbles you along the process here. Right? So that I can thank you enough for being with us today, and believe me, everything we have talked about, especially your insight about behind the post and all, and I hope you continue sharing your work with the world and maybe elevate your learnership along the way.
Thank you so much for having me, Khaula. And you've been a great supporter and also a very good friend to me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you very much, and I hope we get to meet one day in person.
Oh, we will. We will. Either I'm coming to you. I'm definitely coming to see you. And we have to make that happen. For sure. 100%.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.